She brought mainstream inevitability. Television partners adjusted schedules. Broadcasters pushed fever games into prime slots. Social media engagement around Clark regularly outperformed entire team accounts. And suddenly conversations shifted from how do we grow the league to how do we manage this level of attention? That distinction is massive because growth is controlled. Attention is chaotic. Inside front offices, executives understood the upside. Sold-out arenas, higher sponsorship interest, rising valuations. But they also knew the risk imbalance. When one player becomes the gravitational center, everything else bends toward them. Clark didn't ask for that, but she couldn't escape it either. What made this even more complex was how she handled it. She never positioned herself above veterans. She consistently credited those who came before her. She spoke about learning, adjusting, and respecting the league's physicality. That mattered to players because this wasn't a rookie walking in like she owned the room. This was someone aware she'd walked into a house already built by others. And yet, the numbers kept speaking louder than words. Nike's reported $28 million commitment wasn't just endorsement confidence. It was a statement about who could carry the sport forward into new spaces. Sneaker culture, casual fans, younger audiences who hadn't followed the WNBA before, and that created a silent divide, not between players, between eras. Some fans framed it as favoritism. Others called it overdue investment, but insiders described it as something simpler, inevitability meeting timing. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just peak at the right moment. She arrived when the league was finally ready to catch what she brought with her. And here's the twist. This deal didn't just change how rookies are viewed. It quietly changed how teams evaluate pressure. Because if Caitlin Clark could carry this level of spotlight and still perform, the bar for mental toughness just moved. Next we need to talk about Indiana and why this Nike deal put a target on the Fever before the season even tipped off. Indiana didn't just draft a rookie. They inherited a spotlight. The moment the Fever selected Caitlin Clark with the #1 pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, everything around the franchise shifted and the Nike deal amplified it tenfold. This was a team coming off a rebuilding season focused on development, chemistry, and patience. Suddenly, patience wasn't part of the conversation anymore. Every Fever practice became content. Every warm-up clip went viral. Every road game felt like a neutral site event, and Clark walked into all of it carrying the weight of a $28 million endorsement and the expectations that came with it. Here's the reality most casual fans missed. Indiana didn't just have to help Caitlin succeed on the court. They had to protect her off it. Opposing defenses were physical from day one. Teams tested her stamina, her composure, her ability to play through contact. Veterans made it clear nothing would be given. And Clark responded the only way she knew how. She worked. She adjusted to the speed. She absorbed contact. She learned how quickly help defense collapses at the pro level. There were nights she struggled. There were nights she flashed brilliance. And through it all, cameras never left. The Nike deal magnified everything. A bad shooting night became a headline. A tough loss sparked think pieces. A quiet quarter triggered social media debates. But internally, the Fever stayed steady. Coaches emphasized growth over noise. Teammates spoke about her work ethic, her willingness to listen, her competitiveness in practice. The narrative outside was loud. Inside, it was controlled. And that balance mattered because Indiana understood something crucial. This wasn't just about Caitlin Clark's rookie season. This was about sustainability. Nike wasn't planning a one-year spike. They were planning a decade-long presence. And the Fever knew that if they rushed the process, the cost would be higher than wins and losses. But here's where the pressure really intensified. Every time Indiana stepped onto the floor, they weren't just representing a franchise. They were representing the future image of the league. And the rest of the WNBA noticed because if Indiana cracked under the spotlight, critics would say the hype was too much. If they thrived, the bar for every rebuilding team would rise. And coming up next, the moment players across the league realized Caitlin Clark wasn't shrinking from the pressure. She was learning how to carry it. There was a moment, subtle, easy to miss. When the league's tone around Caitlin Clark changed, it wasn't a press conference. It wasn't a viral clip. It was on the floor. Opposing teams stopped testing her emotionally and started testing her strategically. That's when veterans knew because early on Clark was getting the full rookie treatment. Physical defense, constant ball pressure, traps far beyond the three-point line. Teams wanted to see if the hype would crack her. Instead, she adapted. She started moving without the ball more. She trusted teammates. She took fewer rushed shots and punished defenses with passes when they overcommit. The game slowed down. And when the game slows down for a shooter like Caitlin Clark, things get dangerous. Players around the league noticed the shift. You could see it in defensive adjustments, in how quickly help rotated, in how coaches spoke post-game. This wasn't about welcoming a rookie anymore. This was about containment. And here's why the Nike deal matters in this phase. They tried to write her out of the story before it even began. A so-called WNBA analyst sat behind a microphone on January 1st and made a prediction so wild, so disconnected from reality that it left the basketball world absolutely stunned. Jordan Robinson didn't just offer a hot take. She attempted to rewrite Caitlin Clark's future, declaring with full confidence that the Indiana Fever superstar would skip the 2026 World Cup. Not might skip, would skip, as if she had some inside line to Clark's mind that nobody else possessed. Here's the problem. Caitlin Clark had literally just said the exact opposite. 24 hours earlier, Clark sat down for the New Heights podcast and laid out her international basketball dreams with crystal clarity. Her words weren't vague. They weren't uncertain. They were a direct, passionate declaration of exactly what she wanted. The 2026 World Cup, the 2028 Olympics, all of it. She wanted every single opportunity to wear USA across her chest. But apparently that didn't matter. Robinson's prediction painted a scenario where Clark would make the World Cup roster, then decline the invitation to rest for the Indiana Fever's playoff run. A strategic move. She called it a calculated decision to prioritize a WNBA championship over representing her country on the global stage. It was presented as insight, as analysis, as some kind of informed forecast about what Clark would choose when the moment arrived. Except Clark had already chosen. The audacity wasn't just in getting it wrong. It was in speaking over an athlete who had already spoken for herself. This wasn't debate about what Clark should do. She'd already told us what she would do. Yet, here was a media member constructing an entirely different narrative, as if Clark's own words were somehow less reliable than an analyst's speculation. And this is where it gets deeper than just one bad prediction. This moment exposes something broken in how we cover women's basketball. How easily the voices of the athletes themselves get drowned out by people who think they know better. How a clear statement of ambition can be dismissed, reframed, or outright contradicted by someone who's never played a minute of professional basketball. Caitlin Clark spent her entire rookie season proving doubters wrong, shattering records and redefining what's possible. Now she's fighting a different battle. The battle to control her own narrative. Because when Robinson made that prediction, she wasn't just forecasting a decision. She was attempting to impose one. To box Clark into a narrative where international competition takes a backseat to club success, where representing Team USA becomes optional, where clearly stated dreams somehow don't align with what an analyst thinks she'll actually do. But here's what Robinson missed. Caitlin Clark doesn't speak in May. When she sat down for that New Heights podcast on December 31st, just one day before Robinson's prediction went live, she didn't dance around the subject. She didn't leave room for interpretation. Host Travis Kelce asked about her international basketball aspirations, and Clark delivered an answer that should have ended all speculation before it even started. The training camp kind of kicks off the next cycle for preparing for the Olympics, Clark explained. Her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd already mapped out the next 4 years of her career. She wasn't talking about the World Cup as some standalone event. She was describing it as an essential stepping stone, a critical piece of a much larger puzzle that ends in Los Angeles in 2028. This wasn't casual conversation. This was blueprint. Clark went further, addressing the exact concern Robinson would later use as justification for her prediction. The scheduling conflict, the supposed impossible choice between WNBA playoffs and international duty. Clark dismantled it with single sentence. The WNBA season would actually pause the World Cup, mirroring the structure used the Olympics. Read that again. The league would pause. There was no conflict, no impossible decision, no dramatic choice between wearing a Fever jersey or a USA jersey. The infrastructure was already in place. The league had already prioritized international competition. Clark knew it. USA Basketball knew it. The WNBA knew it. Apparently, Jordan Robinson didn't. But even that logistical clarity wasn't the most powerful moment of the interview. When Clark spoke about actually making the 2026 World Cup roster, her tone shifted. Hopefully, I'm on the team for that, she said. Not if I decide to accept. Not we'll see what makes sense. Hopefully, I'm on the team. The language of someone who understands that making Team USA isn't a given. It's earned. It's competitive. It's something she actively wants to fight for. This is where Robinson's prediction goes from inaccurate to insulting. Because it's not just about getting the facts wrong. It's about fundamentally misunderstanding who Caitlin Clark is as a competitor. This is someone who walked into the WNBA as the most scrutinized rookie in league history and responded by breaking the single-season assist record. Someone who faced physical defenses, constant double teams, and relentless media pressure, and still led her team to the playoffs for the first time in years. You think that person is going to turn down the chance to compete on the world's biggest stage? Clark even acknowledged the magnitude of the World Cup, noting that it's been almost harder for us to win because there's more teams that play in the World Cup than teams qualify for the Olympics. She wasn't minimizing it. She was recognizing its prestige, its difficulty, its value as a proving ground for the best players in the world, and she wanted in. But Robinson's narrative required Clark to be someone else entirely, someone who would prioritize rest over glory, someone who would view international competition as optional, someone who would make strategic calculations that contradicted everything she'd publicly stated about her goals. The prediction wasn't bold. It was fiction. And the basketball world noticed immediately. The backlash was immediate and relentless. Social media erupted with a single unified question.